The VO Meter, measuring your voiceover progress. Whether you're a veteran voice actor, just starting out, or don't even know how to set a level, we're here to help you avoid the pitfalls along your voiceover path to success. The VO Meter is brought to you by Voice Actor Websites, Voice 123, Studio Bricks, Global Voice Acting Academy, JMC Demos, and Sennheiser. The VO Meter is produced in part using Source Connect, made by source-elements.com. And now, your hosts, Paul Stefano and Sean Daly.
Walgreens, because it's flu season, and you live in a place with doorknobs and handrails and, people.
We tried booking a vacation rental on one of those other websites. They don't always tell you everything.
The stars take it to the red carpet.
We are back live from the red carpet.
California leads the way for change in America, and so does Kamala Harris.
Rated M for mature. Claire Redfield.
And who exactly are you?
So, yeah, what hashtag should I use to describe a grown man in a tuxedo wrestling a goat?
And prior to 1933, many of them belonged to a variety of political parties that were now outlawed in Germany.
This is the story of how Q got curly. Quinn was crazy about curls. Curly fries, curly straws, curly-haired dogs.
Hey, Jay Michael here. Thanks for listening to the VO Meter podcast. It's one of my favorites. If you're looking for a great demo like the ones you just heard, check out jmcdemos.com for more information.
Hey everyone, Studio Bricks designs and creates the highest performing portable sound isolation booths. Our professionally perfected acoustics enhances your performance and takes your recordings to their maximum quality from your home studio. Forget about managing noise conflicts with your neighbors and family. Pursue your passion for voiceover on your own time and on your own terms.
How many times has this happened to you? You're listening to the radio when this commercial comes on, not unlike this one, and this guy starts talking, not unlike myself.
Or maybe it's a woman that starts talking, not unlike myself, and you think to yourself, geez, I could do that.
Well, mister, well, missy, you just got one step closer to realizing your dream as a voiceover artist, because now there's Global Voice Acting Academy. All the tools and straight-from-the-hip, honest information you need to get on a fast track to doing this commercial yourself.
Well, not this one exactly.
Classes, private coaching, webinars, home studio setup, marketing and branding help, members-only benefits like workouts, rate and negotiation advice, practice scripts, and more. All without the kind of hype you're listening to right now. Go ahead, take our jobs from us. We dare you.
Speak for yourself, buddy. I like what I do.
And you will too when you're learning your craft at Global Voice Acting Academy. Find us at globalvoiceacademy.com.
Because you like to have fun.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to this very special edition of the VO Meter. We have a treat for you tonight. I had this crazy idea of trying to find out if we could gain from the community out there and these experts that we have on this panel an idea of which microphone is good enough for voiceover, first of all. And then secondly, if you're fortunate to have microphones of varying quality, maybe have what some people call the so-called industry standard, if you can tell we can have our panel of experts here tell the difference between those microphones. So we have volunteers that submitted samples of them reading sample copy from sponsor voiceactorwebsites.com's script library. It's a piece from 3Com, and they all read the same piece with first a microphone they would consider entry-level and or maybe even a cheap mic, and then what they would consider a really high-value mic or what some people would call an industry standard. So think AT2020 versus a TLM 103, or a Neumann U87 versus a Rode NT1. We're going to do this first blind because each of these people have told me the microphones, but I haven't told any of our panelists. So we're going to do it blind, see at first what the experts think of the microphones, and then we'll do it again once we go over the list and see if we can stump anybody to see if they cannot tell the difference between these two mics on each of these actors. So with that, Sean, why don't you introduce our host or our panel?
All right, thanks, Paul. Well, our panel really doesn't need an introduction, but for the benefit of our listeners, we'll go ahead and do one anyways. We have NAVA president, voice actor, and audio engineer Tim Friedlander. And from the VOBS podcast, we have George Whittam and Dan Lenard. Thanks, everyone, for coming today.
Hey. Hello, hello.
And then by way of transparency, Sean has also not heard these samples. So he is also participating as an expert, and hopefully we can stump
quote unquote.
We can stump the host of the show as well. We'll see. So before we get started, does anyone want to introduce their services or anything they want to plug? We'll do this at the end as well. But because we're all here of our own free time and volunteering, I want to give everybody a chance to just sort of talk a little bit more about themselves if they want to. If not, we'll just jump right into the meat and potatoes. I don't really care.
Talk about myself? Are you kidding me? You're giving me an opportunity to
George,
talk about
go.
myself. Why would I not talk?
Don't give him half an hour here. I mean,
well, as many of you may know, we have this little company called GeorgeThe.Tech, and it's all designed around supporting the voiceover industry as well as podcast and media production. And our slogan over there is performer-friendly techs. And that's what we are. And it's great, actually, that two of the panelists today are part of the team. Tim Friedlander and Dan Lenard. Both of them are actually on our emergency support phone system. They're very brave for doing this, but it means that they can be reached at almost any hour. It's up to them to answer the phone, obviously, by a dispatch service, and can be reached for technical emergencies. So if you got that job that if you lose it, well, you'll lose some serious cash. You have a way to get that help through us. So that's what we do at George the Tech, as well as designing studios and all kinds of other cool stuff. That's me, and that's us.
That's us, yeah. And I'm Dan Leonard. Yep, there's, I forgot to mention, president of worldvoices.org, where we're making some big changes and really trying to catch up. And we're going to rebrand ourselves a little bit to make ourselves very specific in what we're trying to do for the voiceover community. And I am also the home studio master. If you need help with your home studio, want to learn from the ground up how to do it, that's what I'm there for, homevoiceoverstudio.com.
And I'm one of George the Tech's techs, so I'm here for that. And so, yeah, you get a chance, you can reach one of the three of us. Well, actually, maybe not George for the emergency stuff, but Dan and I will be available as best we can. So, yeah.
What else are you up to?
Voice and video games is what we've been doing a lot this year. Fortunately, I've been doing that in the studios. Run the Soundbox Studios. We've got we're partnering with Tennessee Voiceover Studio to have Nashville, Soundbox Nashville, to provide a voiceover specific studio in Nashville. Cool. Starting at the beginning of the year, which would be nice. There are no voiceover specific studios in actual downtown Nashville, so we'll be partnering with Christie, which would be nice to be able to send actors there. And 3 studios here in LA now, so we're fully up and running. New studio in Woodland Hills has a nice big ADR stage that'll be up and running by the end of the week, hopefully.
Wow.
So yeah, we'll have that, and just keeping busy, keeping the studios going. The strike didn't help, but we're getting back into things. So.
Well, thanks for all the introductions, everybody. I wanted to give you a chance to plug yourselves, because why else would you be here? So I appreciate all the information. But let's get to the fun part. So we have, as I mentioned, 8 different voice actors from around the country. They're all U.S.-based in this case, because they're the people that volunteered. But we have first Cherie B, who's based in New York City. Rex Anderson, who is actually here with me in Baltimore, Maryland. Bob Johnson, who's in Reston, Virginia. Lisa Costello, who's in the Bay Area of California. Ken Foster, who's in the Poconos of Pennsylvania. Marisha Tapera, who's based just outside Washington, D.C. Mike Norgaard, who is based in Dallas, Texas. And Brad Hyland, who is in, I believe, Columbia, Maryland. He recently moved. I don't know if I have the exact city right, but he's also based in Maryland. So we're going to play in that order. And again, it's a blind test at first. They'll read one clip from either their so-called entry-level mic, or it might be their dream/industry standard mic. You can tell us if you know which one is which. So it'll be back-to-back. And again, they're both scripts from the voice actor website's script library, in this case, a 3Com e-learning piece. So everybody ready?
Ready.
You sound enthused. All right.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Get it into my hands. Come on.
Here we go. Here comes Cherie B.
At 3Com, we combine cutting-edge development and research with international support and service and world-class manufacturing facilities. From your neighborhood grocer to global enterprises, 3Com products and services provide resources to users nationwide. At 3Com, we combine cutting-edge development and research with international support and service and world-class manufacturing facilities. From your neighborhood grocer to global enterprises, 3Com products and services provide resources to users nationwide.
All right, so first of all, which one is the more expensive one? And secondly, any guesses as to which either of those mics are?
Not yet.
Calling us or
Nope.
Well,
they're both really good, right?
The first one was a
They're
brighter
different. Yeah.
sound. The second one was a bit of a flatter, darker sound.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Was the second one a Cinco D2?
Yes, it was.
Well done.
Since you nailed it, we have to give it away. Yes, it was. All right, so that's the more entry level one. What was that coming about $199?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one's a really flat mic. Every
yeah.
time I hear it, I'm like, wow, that's a flat mic.
Yeah.
And I'm never really sure if that's good or bad because here's the thing. We are so accustomed to the signature sound of a Sennheiser 416 or that the mic with a brighter top end that has like a lift to it, like that we're so used to it, right? I mean, we've all been hearing that character, that signature for so long. So when you lose the top end, now it sounds dull, but maybe that's actually the more accurate sound, right? So it's a weird thing to judge, right? But if that's obviously the $200 mic, the other one's got to be the more expensive one. I mean, it would be weird to compare it to anything other than a Sennheiser 416, but so I'm going to guess the first one was the Sennheiser 416.
It is. Yeah, it's a 416 versus the Cinco D2. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I found the 416 just a little bit more sibilant. Although
Yeah, I was going to agree with that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was right on the edge. Like if you could find the perfect baby of those two mics,
Yeah.
right? Would you guys think like
Yeah.
the middle intersection of those two would be better?
I agreed. I mean, I felt even it seemed maybe it could have just been I know we're still on Zoom. Did we get all of the settings? Because it felt the first one felt to me it just seemed a little compressed, and that just may have been on the may have been the Zoom. But and I even I always think whenever I compare a 416 against anything else, the 416 always sounds thin to me. It always sounds because it's a little bit brighter. So it's really hard to do them back to back because the Cinco, as you listen to it, if in comparison to the 416, you kind of, since you pulled that high end harshness out of it, it almost feels a little bit more comforting. And as you said, it's a little bit more neutral and flat. But you put that into a session, and depending on the project, it's going to fit right in on what they need. The Cinco may end up being too dark for that session. It's hard to tell, But yeah, something in between those two would be good.
Dan, would you take the brighter mic and want to flatten it, or would you take the flatter mic and want to add some treble?
If it's really flat and really dull, you got to add a little bit to it, but just a little bit of low end and then tweak the high end a little bit, either up or down depending on how sibilant it is. And the difference between those two mics, I mean, I wouldn't call it stark, but it's certainly you could tell the difference between them.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Interestingly, the Cinco is very often said in the same breath as a replacement or stand-in, but they're sound-wise quite different from each other. They may look the same.
Yeah.
They may have a similar shape and everything, but they definitely don't sound the same, which is, I'm glad we got, that was a really great one to start with because that lets everybody hear they truly are different. And if you guys didn't hear the difference, then this would be a good time to maybe
clean out your ears.
Well, yeah. Or
check your headset. Yeah.
Try different, better headphones, or just spend some time listening. This is going to be an awesome resource for a lot of people to improve their listening skills. So, that was a great way to start.
What did you think, Sean? Any comments? Parting comments on Cherie?
Yeah, it's just was really unforgiving with mouth clicks and stuff like that. So that's what I was listening for. But
interesting thing about Cherie, I know she's taken that Cinco. I know they've taken that Cinco on the road and recorded with that a lot inside a portable solution. So maybe they're used to addressing that one more, and this 416 hasn't been used as much. I don't know for sure. I'd have to ask, but I know they booked a lot of work on that Cinco. So kudos.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to, let's see. I want to make sure I have one that's a little bit different. Okay, so we're going to move on to Rex Anderson, and here we go with Rex.
At 3Com, we combine cutting-edge development and research with international support and service, and world-class manufacturing facilities. From your neighborhood grocer to global enterprises, 3Com products and services provide resources to users nationwide. At 3Com, we combine cutting-edge development and research with international support and service and world-class manufacturing facilities. From your neighborhood grocer to global enterprises, 3Com products and services provide resources to users nationwide.
All right.
Pretty stark as well.
I was going to say that was pretty stark. Actually, pretty stark.
Any guesses as to which microphone he's using? Either read.
I don't. The first one sounded to me like a U87 minus a lot of the muffle in the mid range of that. It was a little bit more brighter version of a U87. Definitely felt fuller. It felt more like a large condenser. But I'm not. It could have been a Rode NT1. But it didn't sound as bright. The NT1s I'm used to hearing. At least, I take that back. The NT1As I'm used to hearing is fairly bright on, almost sometimes pretty harsh on that top end.
Oh yeah.
So it could be an NT1 or something along those lines.
It makes me think of like the AT4047 because it's got like a pleasant mid-range, but it's kind of rounded and smooth. So that's where I'm sitting. That's kind of that mid-range, 500 to 700.
I haven't heard that mic enough, but the 4047 is a great mic. I just haven't heard it enough to really have an impression of the way it sounds. But yeah, I was thinking 103 or NT1 kind of area, ballpark. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. For the first one. And the second one, I don't know what that was, but it wasn't great.
Yeah, the second one sucked, but I would have said the same thing. It's definitely a tube mic, the first one. It could be any studio condenser mic, when you start.
Think it was a tube? It was a tube mic?
Yeah, I think that was a tube mic.
It has that kind of a shimmer.
Yeah, and that's and I was thinking U87 or a 103, definitely a German mic of some sort, or Austrian.
Okay, so because everyone has been so verbose, and I don't see that not continuing. I'm just going to spill the beans on each of these as we hear them. Then we can talk more about whether they're good fit or when to use a certain mic. So Rex's first read was actually a 416 also.
Really?
There you go.
Now, I do know about Rex's studio that he does not record in a booth. He records in an open room that he's treated quite heavily. So maybe that makes a difference in the way it's being received. But it definitely was a 416.
No, I love that open room sound. When you have that ability to have that space around you, that's so ideal.
And the second one was an SM58.
There you go. Yeah,
that would explain a whole lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are like the blank canvas of microphones. I mean, you could EQ it to sound pretty decent, but it's a far cry.
Yeah, I wanted to mix that in. He said he had that. He's a singer as well, performs in a band, so he has probably a whole locker full of SM58. So I was like, why not? Let's see what that sounds like together.
I had a college professor who wanted to prove the SM58 could be used on anything, and he had the students mic the entire band with a 58. So like the whole drum kit, everything.
Oh yeah.
Just as like a little, learn how to use a mic kind of experiment. It was pretty cool.
Well, and I think this is actually a great. Since we had the two 416s back to back, I think it's something that that I took from Dan a long time ago, which is the right mic is the right mic for you. And this mic, the 416, it sounded. I think you're right, Dan. It sounded like. I was right there with you. I think we all picked it as being something different. So his voice on that mic in that space sounds exactly like something you would need, which Dan, I took that from you a long time ago and it changed my whole thought process on thinking is that you got to hear, the right mic is the right mic. It's the right mic. It doesn't matter what the cost is on this or the space or whether you think a 416 is going to be too bright or too sibilant or something. If it works for you, it works for you, which is great. So
and he was pretty close to it too. I mean, you can't.
Yeah, you could.
From back here, you've got to be right on top of it, and that's the way Sean has it there. He's got with the pop screen on it. You got to be fairly close, and that's why I got thrown off with the low end on that.
Yeah, and we all heard the same thing. And I still, even thinking back on it, I still wouldn't peg that as a 416. I don't think if I were to hear it again as in that I would hear that as a 416. So that goes to the space he's in. It goes to the use. So really nice.
All right, moving on. So our next volunteer is Bob Johnson, and here are his two reads.
At 3Com, we combine cutting-edge development and research with international support and service and world-class manufacturing facilities. From your neighborhood grocer to global enterprises, 3Com products and services provide resources to users nationwide. At 3Com, we combine cutting-edge development and research with international support and service and world-class manufacturing facilities. From your neighborhood grocer to global enterprises, 3Com products and services provide resources to users nationwide.
These are all too different. I mean, they were
yeah, just a bit
dramatically different sounding. Again, the first one being the bit more hi-fi sound, more articulate. The second one being much flatter, more band-passed, so like it doesn't have much top, doesn't have much bottom. The first one wasn't awesome either, especially comparing it to the first two reads we heard today. It didn't have a nice full, not boomy, but it didn't have a full low end. It just sounded thin at the low end. So I wasn't like loving either mic in that case.
Right there with you. And it also picked up, there's a lot more mouth noise. You heard a lot more of the mouth noise in that first one. So whatever it was is picking up a lot of that. It's kind of the same thing as you mix these first two. I liked the tone almost of the first one, where you heard that if we could get rid of the mouth noise on there, or again kind of brighten up or whatever with the flatter version of number two, if you can do something with there to make that a little clearer, a little crisper, a little more full. But yeah, neither one of them were ideal for the voice, Yeah. So.
Yeah, I the first one I thought was some lower end condenser mic, maybe a 3035 or something along those lines.
Or 2020, yeah.
It could have been a 2020. The 3035 just sounds a little bit better. And the second one I thought was really muddy, and whatever that is, I wouldn't use it.
Yeah.
Sean, any thoughts?
Yeah, very different. I'm like, is the other one a dynamic or even like a headset or gaming mic? It sounded very different.
Yeah. It's like it sounded like it was right up next to their mouth.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. And the first one, like we said, wasn't ideal. To me, it felt bottom heavy but hollow. Like missing some of the like clarity and some presence. But yeah, so again, the other one's just was perplexing. It's almost like like an old web conferencing mic,
So just because I happen to know, I'll tell you that Bob records in a Gretsch Ken booth that I found for him on Craigslist. So that might color the sound a bit as opposed to someone who's in an open room. And his two mics, the first one was an AKG 414.
Oh, okay.
And the second,
really?
Yeah, AKG 414. And the second was a Synco D2.
Yeah, that Synco, again, it's just kind of just this flatness that doesn't, I guess maybe it's a good blank canvas, but I don't know if, you got to really know how to work with it, I guess,
With the 414, of course, it depends on how he has it set up, because it's got multiple patterns, it's got a lot of adjustments to it. So
it's not, maybe he had the high or the low cut switch on that thing turned on to the higher setting. So there's like maybe a 40. There's like 3 settings on that mic. It's got a lot of switches.
It's got a lot,
There's a lot of settings.
It has multiple polar patterns, right?
Doesn't it? Got at least 8. It's got
so
quite
Bob,
a few.
try the figure 8.
There's so many things going on. That's the thing. Like, unless you're comparing that against another of the same mic with different settings, it's very hard to know whether the mic itself was the issue or what. Let's just chalk that one up as being a mic of such a pedigree of that mic. It may have just been set up a little bit wrong.
Yeah, George, you and I have talked about how the figure 8 can be a secret weapon in a small booth. So, Bob, give that a try. Turn on the figure 8 on the AKG 414 and see if that helps.
Try that too. Yeah, try that too.
All right, coming up next, we have Lisa Costello. I will tell you right off the bat, I don't know what her studio is like, so this will be more blind for me. But here is Lisa's 2 reads, and let me know what you think.
At 3Com, we combine cutting-edge development and research with international support and service and world-class manufacturing facilities. From your neighborhood grocer to global enterprises, 3Com products and services provide resources to users nationwide. At 3Com, we combine cutting-edge development and research with international support and service and world-class manufacturing facilities. From your neighborhood grocer to global enterprises, 3Com products and services provide resources to users nationwide.
All right, now you're challenging us a little bit more, because these are more similar.
These sound really close to me.
They're more similar. Well, I don't know. It's weird. The very first word out of her mouth, the second mic sounded weird. I don't know what was going on.
Yeah, the same thing. I had it almost sounded like it was phasing or something. It was almost like a little. It was, but it went away. But yeah.
I mean, you could hear the configuration of her studio, that it was a little larger, or it just wasn't acoustically treated right. But the first one, I thought it was a little bright. the first one, and then compared to the second one, it was, I'm like, what on earth is that? That's a cheap mic, whatever it is. And if it's not,
maybe it is.
That could have been a 2020.
And maybe it was proximity. It was sort of a natural sound, but it sounded maybe that she was a little far away from the mic.
I was going to say that too, yeah.
On the second one?
Maybe a couple.
Yeah. Well, it was other things. The first one, at least from my take, I heard a lot more background noise on that first mic than I did on the second mic. I could hear some editing, and you could hear there's a little bit of something rumbling in the background. So it could have just been that was there on the first mic that wasn't there when she was recording the second time through.
Yeah, that's a tough call. I mean, I think we all agree the second one sounded weirder.
It sounded weirder, yeah.
Weirder is not in the marketing materials for that mic.
Sean, what do you think?
I was thinking the first one was maybe like a nice entry-level thing, like maybe the NT1. If it was a more expensive one, maybe like a TLM 102. But the second one, I don't know, either like I was thinking an Audio-Technica, either like a 2020 or the 875R.
I'm gonna go for like an odd one on this second one, and I've heard this on some. That's just from my experience in different people in the studio. That sounds like the second one sounded like the wrong person on a 416. Sounded like a voice that doesn't work on a 416. That's what I would pick up from that second one, based on kind of just the overall feel of it. But I could be totally wrong on that one. We'll see.
I found that there seemed to be no dimension to either of those.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
They were both very kind of flat. The first one was brighter than the second one, but I'm going to stick with the 2020 on the second one, but it could have been the first one too.
All right, ready for the big reveal?
Yeah.
So Lisa's first read was on a TLM 103, and the second was an AT or Audio-Technica AT 4040.
4040, yeah. Cool.
All right, people, you got to up your game on some of these.
So Sean was probably the closest, right? You thought it might be a 2020, so basically the big brother. So.
Yeah, I said, no, I think you said a 102, didn't you? Like you said TLM 102.
Oh yeah, for her other one.
Oh, for the first one.
So compared to a 102,
I can see that.
Fairly close, yeah.
Yeah. 4040 is a similar price point, kind of. It's a little bit cheaper than the others, but the 44 is like a $300 mic.
Yep.
Yeah, the Audio-Technica those mics all have slightly weird upper mid ranges. They all have kind of weird little things. They're not very smooth.
I think that one's the most neutral in that range, like out of the 4040, the 4047, the 4050, and all that.
4047s are really it is a flattering mic, especially on women. I think it's a real nice one on women. For her, I would say if the 4040 is something you can let go of and you can make an upgrade, maybe try a 4047. But she's got the 103, so is that really an upgrade?
Or a side grade, yeah.
Side grade.
And how is she adjusting for her room and stuff like that? It didn't, there was definitely some things she could have played with there to make it sound a little fuller.
Yeah, I would say experiment with room acoustic treatment and mic placement both a little bit, starting with placement, obviously. It costs nothing. And then go from there. But nothing bad there, just the second one just was less. Just didn't work.
This little man. Yeah. I should note, I asked everybody to send these raw, and I assumed they did. I didn't really check that closely, but they all look like they were raw.
Some of them aren't, yeah.
I did normalize a little bit to try and level out some of the levels that were not matching, so that's the only thing I did to them. But other than that, they should be raw. All right, so we're halfway home. That means 4 more left. We're going to go next to Ken Foster, and here is Ken.
At FreeCom, we combine cutting-edge development and research with international support and service and world-class manufacturing facilities. From your neighborhood grocer to global enterprises, 3Com products and services provide resources to users nationwide. At 3Com, we combine cutting-edge development and research with international support and service and world-class manufacturing facilities. From your neighborhood grocer to global enterprises, 3Com products and services provide resources to users nationwide.
All right, studio. Let me tell you a little bit about Ken's studio before we start, because I do know his studio. He records in a whisper room, a big one. It's either 8x8 or 8x10. So
it sounds big. It sounds big.
Dan, you said you wanted to play back that one again?
I would love to hear that one again, because there was a slight change in there, and I'm like, what's going on?
I don't even need a reason. Here we go.
Thank you.
At FreeCom, we combine cutting-edge development and research with international support and service and world-class manufacturing facilities. From your neighborhood grocer to global enterprises, 3Com products and services provide resources to users nationwide. At 3Com, we combine cutting-edge development and research with international support and service and world-class manufacturing facilities. From your neighborhood grocer to global enterprises, 3Com products and services provide resources to users nationwide.
The second mic was noisier. It sounded like maybe that was a tube mic.
And he was too close to it.
In a weird pattern, like a figure. Maybe it was a weird pattern. I don't know. The second one was weird. The first one was way more natural. The first one sounded more
I thought the first one was a little muddy, not like the ones earlier. It was there was not a whole lot of separation between the mid, between the low and the high. The mid seemed to dominate in that. So
it was definitely mid forward. Yeah, it was more mid forward.
Yeah, what kind of
mic? I mean, compared to the second one, it was better, but I still didn't think either of them were awesome. But, Tim?
Yeah, I liked I think what I liked in this first one, I liked the kind of the tone in the first one, but I heard a lot of space. I heard a lot of the booth, and it makes sense if he's got something that big. I think it's maybe he's trying to compensate by being too close to that or something. I'm not really sure what that was, but I think it felt like it was just he's like one turn of the dial from being really dialed in that space. If he just figure out kind of what it is, but he's just a little bit either off or maybe in wrong side of the room, or if it's that big of a room, he's got a lot of space to work with in there, and maybe he's just he's losing some of that in that space. But I thought the sound of his voice on that first one was acceptable. It's something but it needs a little bit of dialed in. And the second one, it was just like you could just hear the sizzle on that second one. The self noise on that second mic. On this one, a little bit of something white noise in there.
Yeah, with that, I'd look at the second one, and I'm thinking something like an SMB.
Oh, an SM7B, a dynamic mic?
An SM7B.
Because it was an elevated noise.
Because he was really close to it. And
True. So. It was very different from the first one character-wise. So it could be one's dynamic, one's condenser. Yeah.
Well, it's even kind of some of the self-noise I had. Like I had an older Apogee, one of their mics. Not the hype mic, but one of the previous ones that I had, and it had that very similar kind of sizzle self noise to it, which just doesn't work, obviously, for what we're doing. So,
Sean, any guesses as to models? You almost nailed it, the last one. What do you think?
Ooh,
I actually told you one of these, didn't I? I accidentally gave away one of these, so never mind. But what do you think of the overall sound?
Let's see. Pretty similar to what everyone said. I thought the second one just sounded thinner, less pleasant on his voice. He sounded to me like he was working it closely on both. So like the first one wasn't quite as clear as I wanted it to be, but it still sounded better than the second.
Gotcha. All right, so big reveal. His first read was on an Earthworks Ethos, which I'm not terribly familiar with. I mean, I know the brand, but I haven't heard a lot of them. And the second one was a 416.
He's using it too close.
Something, yeah.
There's an Earthworks.
You're using one right now. Okay.
Yeah.
No, that 416 does not sound. It does not sound like a 416. I mean, something's not right in there with that 416.
Counterfeit ones.
Yeah. I mean, 416. I mean, I've never heard like self noise like that on a 416, and we all picked it up, right? I mean, we all heard that.
Mm-hmm.
We all had the same thing, right?
Yeah.
What interface? For that one, Paul?
Yeah, do you know anything about the rest of the
gear? I don't know what interface he uses, no.
Okay.
But Ken is a listener and actually has been a co-host on occasion, so he'll probably hear this and
take
your advice.
Crap.
Go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, the 416 in that case was either a combination of things, either damaged, a knockoff, bad, really poorly placed, combination of them. It was just not. I mean, none of us in any way identified that as a 416. So something ain't right with that mic.
Yeah,
interesting. Yep. Well, Ken, hopefully you're not sorry you contributed, but maybe I get some help in adjusting the studio.
I mean, it was quite a few years ago, but I remember somebody buying several counterfeits and then selling them to some friends because he's like, I found a great deal. And then egg on the face when we found out that they were counterfeit. That was 10 years ago, probably. Yeah. So those are maybe floating around out there.
Maybe, yeah.
All right, next on our list is Marisha Tapera. Let's play Marisha's 2 reads.
At 3Com, we combine cutting-edge development and research with international support and service and world-class manufacturing facilities. From your neighborhood grocer to global enterprises, 3Com products and services provide resources to users nationwide. At 3Com, we combine cutting-edge development and research with international support and service and world-class manufacturing facilities. From your neighborhood grocer to global enterprises, 3Com products and services provide resources to users nationwide.
All right.
Sibilant. Yeah,
Sibilant. Yep.
On both counts.
Absolutely, yeah.
The second one was sibilant in a more tolerable way to me. Like the first one was a little bit more not complimenting of her S's.
Yeah. She also changed her position because she got a lot closer and a lot quieter.
Notice that. Mm-hmm.
Oh, maybe
Which can make a difference. I mean, depending on how you're projecting can change the characteristics of the mic considerably.
Well, and sibilance.
And
like
definitely sibilance.
Push on S's and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think either were bad, but I mean, if I was just picking a mic to use on her today, I would probably pick the second one just on completely face value. But as to what mics, boy, I came out of the gate nailing it. There's no way I'm going to do that again. I'm not guessing. I don't know.
Yeah, I had like I said sibilant on both. I had like the first one was like kind of like a dull 416. Again, so that kind of becomes almost you're talking about possibly, but it wasn't dull like the Cinco. It wasn't mellowed out like that. And then the second one, the sibilant, I said was more mellowed out, but it was very interesting because I kind of had the opposite reaction to you, George. Like the more I listened to it, the more I thought the sibilant started to become more prominent through that second one. At first, I was like, oh, this is really nice. It's much more mellow. And then the sibilant, it hit differently. It was, you heard the same thing, Dan, right? Yeah, it was just.
I did. Can you play it again? And this time I'm going to wear the headphones that Tim's wearing.
Oh, the
Let me know when you're ready.
Because these are definitely different headphones.
Yeah.
Very, and I've been wearing these Austrians more and more, and these are more bright.
Gotcha.
And now that I've switched back to the buyers, whoa, they're different.
Yeah, them plugged in.
Yeah, let me hear the same.
All right,
let me hear it again on these.
At 3Com, we combine cutting-edge development and research with international support and service and world-class manufacturing facilities. From your neighborhood grocer to global enterprises, 3Com products and services provide resources to users nationwide. At 3Com, we combine cutting-edge development and research with international support and service and world-class manufacturing facilities. From your neighborhood grocer to global enterprises, 3Com products and services provide resources to users nationwide.
Yeah, and on second listen, the sibilance in both is different.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it is different.
Yeah.
Which may give a clue, but
this one really surprised me, I have to say. I really liked the first one better, and I was shocked when I heard the results. You guys ready, or do you want any more comments before we do that?
I got nothing, man. I don't know.
I was going to guess the AT875R again for the first one, and then, if I remember right, I think she has a Sennheiser MK4 for the second one.
All right,
that would make sense, actually.
I would say the same thing. The MK4 would make sense, yeah.
Okay. Actual results. The first one is an AT2020 digital, so a USB mic. And the second is a TLM 102.
Ooh, close.
Wow. Yeah, it's different sibilant. And that second one is almost it's a less enjoyable sibilant. The first one is almost an enjoyable sibilant. The second one is very, very interesting. But that makes sense. A 102, yeah.
That's why I changed headphones because like Tim's like the sibilance is, and the way these two headphones reproduce treble is a little different. So these sound a little smoother.
Yeah.
That one really threw me off. But it's interesting, the MK4 being a stand-in maybe for the 102. I would not be in any way shocked if those mics internally were the same mic.
Oh, yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
It could be, because they're both Sennheiser Neumann company. And
what do you call it, Sean? The TLM 101.5?
Oh, yeah. 101.5.
That would be, I don't know if anybody's gotten to hear those two mics back to back, an MK4 and a 102 on the same voice, but I bet they are darn similar. Yeah. Interesting.
Okay, next up on the list is Mike Norgaard. I will tell you, Mike records in an open room as well. It's well treated, but he does not have a booth. It's an open room that he uses as a studio, and here is Mike's reads.
At 3Com, we provide cutting-edge development and research with international support and service and world-class manufacturing facilities. From your neighborhood grocer to global enterprises, 3Com products and services provide resources to users nationwide. At 3Com, we combine cutting-edge development and research with international support and service, and world-class manufacturing facilities. From your neighborhood grocer to global enterprises, 3Com products and services provide resources to users nationwide.
Paul, can you double check that you're in original sound mode for musicians on?
It says that.
Off?
It says it up top
Okay.
on the left.
Just going to say, because they were both very similar and both didn't have much top end at all. They were kind of both on the dull side. So I was like, that's weird.
Yeah, I find it fascinating that they keep changing mic technique depending on the mic.
It does seem that way, doesn't it? It does seem that way, yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
So, yeah, they were both a little bit lifeless on the top. They didn't have much, articulation, and they weren't bad, just not great.
The second
But
one
similar.
was better. Yeah, the second one was, neither of them was fantastic, and it seemed like the voice was either compressed or he was really trying to put the low end on his voice instead of trying to sound natural. Plus, there was a plosive in there, which means he's still not using it right.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, and then that second one seemed like it changed halfway through. The second half seemed slightly different than the first half of the on that mic 2. It's interesting because I said that I thought mic 2 sounded less natural to me.
It sounded quite nasal to me.
Something, yeah. And then the first one I said was a warm read, but it seemed like it was a bit close. But so it's kind of hard to tell if, again, what we've all said, which is like, is it mic or is it mic technique or is it space?
Or it's just mic in this case.
It's just the mic.
They all have something to do with sound. And even it would be, I don't know if you've done this, and next time you should, but you should have somebody send in 2 reads with the same mic.
I was just thinking that
mess
actually,
with the placement and really test us to see what we think. Because again, that will make a dramatic difference, and it will throw you off. So. Well, why don't you reveal, because this is painful.
All right, so Mike's first microphone was an Audio-Technica AT897, which is a shotgun mic that...
It's like $300, like kind of an upgraded AT875R.
Yeah. It's a little bit longer. It's an older version. I don't think they make them anymore. But
that
was
was
the
bad.
first
I
one.
was going to say Synco D2 as well, but it was a little bit nicer sounding than the Synco D2.
So that was one. The second one was a MKH 416 or 416.
I'm going to chalk that one up to placement. It sounded like he was trying to compensate for mouth noise by being a little bit too far off axis or something. It lost the signature sound of the 416.
You got to use a 416 right. I mean, there's a way to use it, and if you go off axis or something like that, you're going to lose part of what it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, that can be good, but that's still, it's like the reason you use that mic, in my personal opinion, is because you want that sound. If you don't want that sound, it doesn't, yes, that's fine. You can play with mic technique, but I don't know. It's just such a characteristic sound to it that when you get off target, it definitely doesn't give you that sizzle. Doesn't give you the je ne sais quoi.
Yeah, and it's exactly what it is. Like, it's being off target. It's because that is very much, it is such a small, really sweet zone that you have to be in to make that 416 work. And I used it here for years as my only microphone for like everything, narration, podcasts, and if you get the right, it would always take a little bit longer for somebody who's never been on it to get them really dialed in. But once you get it dialed in, it sounds phenomenal. It can sound great on almost anybody who comes in and uses it. But it's so easy to slightly drift a little bit off. I'm on the 416 right now, so you drift a little bit off and you kind of lose. You get a little bit of that. Doesn't take much.
Yeah.
All right, so we come to our last submission. This is from Mr. Brad Hyland, and here are his 2 reads.
At 3Com, we combine cutting-edge development and research with international support and service and world-class manufacturing facilities. From your neighborhood grocer to global enterprises, 3Com products and services provide resources to users nationwide. At 3Com, we combine cutting-edge development and research with international support and service and world-class manufacturing facilities. From your neighborhood grocer to global enterprises, 3Com products and services provide resources to users nationwide.
All right. Well, Brad, we have to break it to you, but acoustics are your major enemy here.
Yes.
You're fighting acoustics here.
Mm-hmm.
Brad is definitely in an open room. I think he does do some treatment, or he does some.
Do you think it's an open? Are you sure it's an open room?
Yeah, positive. It's not a booth.
Yeah, but he's getting bounce off of his desk or
something,
or something like that. Something sounds very hollow in there. It was a little better on the second one, but still very prominent. And I think any engineer would go, you got, well, like us would say, hey, yo, fix acoustics, like George said. It was pretty clear.
My first reaction was the first one was a 416 in a big room, and he was just standing like 5 feet away. That's what it sounded like. That's what it sounded like. And the second one, I couldn't. I don't know. It was just flatter. It was flatter, but you still have this room to compete with, and that's tough to compete with. We all know you can have a great sounding mic in a bad space. It's still not going to sound great. Your space is, as you said, is going to what you're fighting against here.
Sean,
what do you think?
Let's see. Like you guys heard the room in both. I thought the second one felt a little bit more intimate, more present, but I'm not sure what that one is, though. Like if we have like a more expensive one than the 416 or less, but I preferred the second one.
I said an NT1 for the second one. For some reason it felt like an NT1, but the more I listened to it, the less it kind of felt like that. I just put down my first reaction to it. So,
well, why don't I just tell you what they were?
Let's hear it.
Big reveal. First one, NT100, Rode NT100, or sorry, 1000, NT1000.
Interesting. Okay.
Really?
And second one, 416.
416. I would have. I think all of us were thinking 416 on the second one.
The 1000, I'm not familiar with at all. Has anyone used that before?
I had that years ago.
I think it's like a tube. Yeah. Let's see.
It's a weird one. It's actually an electric condenser, meaning that it uses a battery or not. You can put a 9-volt battery in there, or you can use it without. They were one of my earliest small diaphragm condenser mics that I had back when I was getting started, because they're affordable and versatile. They even had like a weird thing you could change out a little filter cap that went over the capsule, and it would change its response from, I think, cardioid to hyper. It was an odd mic. It's not a bad mic.
Interesting.
It's like it's actually one that you'll see show up here and there, and you're like, that's a weird mic, but people still like it. It's not a bad mic, but it's going to have a higher self noise for sure than a lot of other mics. It's going to be noisier. It wouldn't be a great choice, but it works. It's not my favorite. But
it shows how the acoustics can overshadow the characteristics of the mic. And,
as soon as I heard the mid-range bump, the comb filtering, it was, to me, it was so distracting. I just sort of I actually kind of stopped listening to the second one. I was like, I can't really tell what's going on here.
Yeah. And again, at 416, it doesn't sound like we think I think it should. Doesn't sound like, for 416 in a space like that, if again, I would expect a little less noise. I don't know. It's tough to tell. I just would expect something different.
Well, that's the end of our submissions. By way of wrapping up, I'd like to just ask a couple of questions. I'll go over the list one more time so you have it fresh in your head. But I'd like to know, one, if you think any of the mics could be a sub for each other. Two, if there are any surprises. And then three, if there's any mics you completely throw out. So on the list again, in no particular order, 416, Synco D2, SM58, AKG 414, TLM 102 and 103, AT 4040, AT 2020 digital, NT 1000, and an AT 897. So I'll just go around our Zoom room here. Dan, are there any that surprised you? Are there any you think would be a good stand-in for each other between the price points, and any that you think just shouldn't be used ever?
Well, there was a couple. Well, clearly the 2020 USB is, that's great for a podcast, but I wouldn't use it for voiceover. I mean, we know a lot of people who are starting who will use that. But any one of those, I mean, there was a couple that just didn't sound good. I can't remember. I mean, the 58.
58, we were saying.
The 102, there was stuff that was a little sibilant. But, we couldn't get the 414 because it didn't sound like a 414. I mean, a lot of these didn't sound with the normal characteristics that they usually have. And a lot of that had to do with acoustics and mic placement, which, these are two of the keys to getting good audio is your mic placement and the acoustics in your room. So those are things you need to pay attention to. So I wouldn't necessarily. You use a 416, you use a 416 right, you'll be fine.
George, how about you? What are your parting thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I would throw out the 58 for VO. I mean, in a pinch it works, but it's not in this field of mics. It was the last at the lower. The Cinco D2, travel mic. Throw it in your bag. Don't care if it gets broken or damaged for $200 as much as a $1,000 mic, but it's way behind the others in terms of fidelity and detail and articulation. The 4040 wasn't that great and flattering to me. For whatever reason, just didn't work well. 414 seems like something was just set wrong on the mic to me, maybe. It could sound a lot better. And the 102 and 103 just are good mics, but what they cost, they're just not a good value. Like there's so many good mics in that price point, or even for half the price, that we didn't hear today.
Yeah.
Like I was hoping to hear Rode NT1 and a 1.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
We did not hear an NT1, and that's surprising because that's a really good mic.
Ubiquitous, yeah.
Yeah, or even a Harlan Hogan VO1A, which has been around for years, and I've put up against a U87 in a couple of tests, and it compared very favorably. They're not identical, but so there's a lot of affordable mics that were not in this test. But as the first 3 or 4 samples, the 2 were starkly different. So there was no standing in. I feel like the first or second female voice actor we heard, those two were very similar.
Yeah.
Well, it was what were the 2? Was it a 4040 and then a what?
Lisa, the second female voice, was a
103 and a
versus
103.
103. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I think the 103, the 4040 is a pretty good stand-in for a 103 at a third the price. Because the 3030, I think a 4040 is like $300 and a 103 is about $1,200, so maybe a quarter the price. 4040 is maybe those are the most similar in terms of I want an affordable budget backup or an alt, in my opinion, out of everything we heard today.
No, I agree. Like that was what surprised me, is that I wanted the expensive ones to sound better than they did. The 103 and the 416.
Yeah.
So,
what do you think, Tim?
It was great hearing so many 416s. I loved that we had so many, so everybody could hear how drastically different that mic will sound when used in different ways, different placements, and in different spaces.
Right.
There's this misnomer of that mic is that, well, use this mic because it will negate the room and it will take out the room noise, and it's not true at all, and it still has a lot of technique that's required to get it to sound right. It's definitely not a good starter mic because it takes a lot of technique to make it to really hone in on the right sound on that mic.
It's not a magic wand, George.
No, but it was a great test, and I think everybody should listen to this today and review it and listen to it critically. Listen to it on 2 different pairs of headphones, and then try to figure out how many times throughout the test I switched mics, which I switched them
I saw you switch a couple times.
4 or 5 times in the last 10 minutes. So
yeah, and I did. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. I'm loving this MA50 I've been using.
That's the Mojave,
right? The Mojave one.
Yeah, lesser known but very good sounding. Is that a $500-ish mic? 500.
It's probably about 500, but value-wise, I'm thrilled with it.
I mean, you're getting a U.S. mic where the designer of the mic is right here in North Hollywood.
Yeah.
He got his hands on it last week. So
he had his hands on it. It had an issue. He was like, he fixed it on the spot. And like,
that's great.
There's something when you live in a town where the mics are made and you can talk to the designer and. There's something kind of magical about that versus like a German mic or a Japanese mic where it's just some factory and there's no connection to. There's something kind of cool about that. Mojave's they've always had a hard time competing against all the big 3 maybe or big 4, but they always are impressive for what they cost.
Yeah. What's also interesting is that, again, a lot of the stuff is produced to create music. And and their uses like a 102 is usually for a saxophone or something along those lines. So it has those characteristics. We're just borrowing these technologies and these different mics and applying it to our use for voiceover. And that's why the studio condenser mics generally are the best. When you go to an NT1 or a 103 or something along those lines, and that's why they're so popular. But the 416 is, definitely gives you, if you know how to use it, it can be very powerful.
Yeah, I don't want to in any way imply that I'm impartial, because both the mics I'm talking to right now are free. We're free. I did not buy either of these.
Free is the best price.
But this is, and they're both being processed. So all of this with a grain of salt. This is the Earthworks, and it's an amazing mic. It's so unique. It's a mic. It's a small capsule, very small capsule mic. It can be used for broadcast, podcast, even VO. I think it has the detail and the quality and the low noise. It's just a very weird and versatile mic at $400. And then the Austrian Audio OC818. This is really the spiritual successor to the 414, designed by the same people, manufactured on a lot of the same tools. It's another interesting microphone, and that's this microphone right here. I tried to get them EQ'd similarly, so you wouldn't know I was switching them, but they're definitely a little different. But anyway, plugging
blind
mics
test
today.
within the blind test. I love it.
Yeah.
Hey, Paul, did you know Voice123, the largest online marketplace for voice actors, just celebrated its 20th year anniversary?
Whoa, really? That's amazing. Doesn't really surprise me, though. I've used Voice123 since the beginning of my career. I remember way back in my first year where I booked a job as a hypnotist. I actually got to say, "You are getting very sleepy," on a radio ad. The whole thing was super easy. They even paid me right away for the audition and said that was all they needed.
I've been a member of Voice123 for years as well. I've always enjoyed their upfront policies, ability to contact clients directly, and their commitment to the voiceover industry.
Totally. CEO Rolf Veldman has appeared on the show before, and in every interaction I've had with him and the company, I felt a sense of trust, like they really care.
Well, if you want a great place to find your VO niche and find yourself as a voice actor, visit voice123.com for more information.
Now, VO Meter listeners can also get 15% off premium tier memberships. For more information, visit our website and click on the Click Here to Save 15% banner on our sponsors page.
Voice123. Speak for yourself.
In these modern times, every business needs a website. When you need a website for your voice acting business, there's only one place to go. Like the name says, voiceactorwebsites.com. Their experience in this niche webmaster market gives them the ability to quickly and easily get you from concept to live online in a much shorter time. When you contact voiceactorwebsites.com, their team of experts and designers really get to know you and what your needs are. They work with you to highlight what you do. Then they create an easily navigable website for your potential clients to get the big picture of who you are and how your voice is the one for them. Plus, VoiceActorWebsites.com has other great resources, like their practice script library and other resources to help your voiceover career flourish. Don't try it yourself. Go with the pros. VoiceActorWebsites.com, where your VO website shouldn't be a pain in the you-know-what.
Well, Sean, because I've been talking a lot, why don't you give everybody a chance to promote themselves one more time and wrap up?
Absolutely. So, gentlemen, any closing thoughts as well as anything you want to promote before we let you go? We'll start with you, George.
Closing thoughts: get your rooms squared away. Get a sound check to start out your new year. From Dan does what he calls the specimen collection cup. If you want another opinion, I do what's called sound check. I think everybody would benefit from starting out their year or ending out the year with that, just a fresh set of ears. You absolutely lose perspective over time over how you sound and what your sound is. Your ears adjust to your sound. Your ears adjust to your headphones. For me, changing headphones today was a very interesting thing. So it was like changing glasses. It was like, whoa. And then I readjusted, right? So that's where I would leave it. Just get an engineer to listen to your audio and give you this kind of feedback that these folks got today, because it's incredibly valuable, and you'll know what next steps you want to look at. And they may not be expensive. They might be just move 2 inches closer to your mic.
Yep.
Yeah, I would agree. Of course, go over to the Specimen Collection Cup, and the thing is you can't guess if you really don't know what it's supposed to sound like, it makes it very difficult for you to get the right choice in mic. And you want to create that somewhat full and non non-sibilant and all those different things that'll cause problems, which was interesting listening to all of these. Is we were listening to the problems with each one of them, and we didn't really hear any positives with a lot of them. There was only a couple of mics that sounded really, really good. And again, it comes down to technique and acoustics and that sort of thing. And that's why those are so important. That's why we stress the acoustics of your room and learning how to use your mic properly. But I've only said that about 4 times today.
Yep. And then I would just add, for anybody, and we see this a lot on Facebook, is if you do have a client if you have a problem, they don't approve your audio, know where to go, know where you can go in a pinch. And I see this all the time, not all the time. I see it frequently enough that people are like, all of a sudden I have to find a studio today. Where do I go? You should know what area you live in, know where you're at. And I'll give a plug for the VORG. The Voiceover Resource Guide now has a map of the United States with all of the voiceover studios that we have worked with on a map in the United States. So you can just look and see where a nearest studio is. But you got to know what's there, because when it comes into a pinch, you can't be, if you've got a 24-hour turnaround time, you're not going to be able, we'll be able to get on and help you out, but there's only so much we can do in the same day or 24 hours ahead of time. If it's a space issue, we can't get you new sound panels in there. We can't do that. If you have a problem with your mic, we can't fix that mic for you. If you've got, some other noise is coming through. So, know what your resources are, know where to go if your studio gets not approved, which I've seen frequently in the last couple of weeks. I'm not sure if it's one particular producer people are working with that's being extra picky about the sound, but it's been a frequent thing in the last couple of weeks of more people saying my studio's not been approved by a client, and I need to figure out a way to do that. So,
great point. I know one more place to find studios. If you're already a Source Elements, Source Connect license holder. If you have an account, I don't even think you have to have an active license, but they have a ginormous database of studios that are searchable by city and all that stuff. So that doesn't necessarily mean they're great studios if they have Source Connect, but chances are if they are using an own Source Connect, they're probably studios that just pay extra attention to their voiceover quality. So that's another good place to look if you're in a pinch.
Awesome. Thank you for the sage advice, gentlemen. These guys are all paragons of voiceover audio, and any one of them is an excellent resource in their own right. So we are so happy to have you on the podcast. Thanks again for being so generous with your time.
Our pleasure. I'm glad we pulled it off. It was great. Good job, guys.
Always great hanging out with our fraternity of audio guys.
Yep.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the VO Meter. To follow along, visit us at www.vometer.com.
We'd also love to hear your comments or suggestions for the show. Or if you have a questionable gear purchase, tell us all about it on our Facebook page or on Twitter @the VO Meter.